let's come to a nice sitting position. So we can start to bring ourselves inwards, sitting comfortably on a blanket or a cushion. Closing the eyes. And just starting to tune inwards. Relaxing the hips, relaxing the legs. Do you feel like you're sitting steady? Elongating the spine, placing the hands in a way that you're able to relax the shoulders and relax the arms. Relaxing the jaw and all the facial muscles. And bringing yourself to your breathing. At first, just noticing your breathing, not necessarily trying to change anything. First, just noticing what is. And slowly start to deepen the breath by making the inhales and the exhales a little longer. Seeing if you can keep them the same length. You can do ujjayi so you can hear your breathing. And then see if you can double your exhalation. So if you're inhaling to the count of 6, try to exhale to the count of 12, for example. We're going to do Surya Bhedan pranayama. So you make the mudra with your hand. So you fold the first finger, middle finger in. Exhale fully. Close the left nostril. Inhale through the right. Close the right. Exhale left. Inhale right. Exhale left. Inhale right. Exhale left. Do 5 more at your own breathing rhythm. trying to make the exhale double the length of the inhale. Taking some breaths in between through both nostrils, inhaling and exhaling through both nostrils. And do Surya Bhedan, so exhale fully. Close the right nostril, inhale left. Exhale right. Inhale left. Exhale right. Inhale left. Exhale right. Five more like this. finished, come back to even breathing. So the inhales and the exhales are the same length. And slowly allowing the breath to come back to a natural breathing. You can bring the hands in front of the chest. We'll chant an Om. And rubbing the hands together, warming up the palms. Bringing the hands over the eyes. Opening the eyes and releasing the hands. So, continuing on our Yoga Sutras. So we're on Sutra 2.3. If you're following along. In the last week, in the previous two sutras, we saw that Patanjali was suggesting Kriya Yoga would thin out the Kleshas, the afflictions, the causes of pain, the causes of afflictions. So remember, there was tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara, pranidhana. And so now what he's doing is he's listing what the kleshas are. So these are what Kriya Yoga are to help thin out. So word by word, avidya. Avidya means ignorance or misapprehension about the real nature of things. Asmitā, it means I-am-ness or the ego, egoism. Raga is attachment. Dvesha is aversion. Abhiniveshāh is the fear of death or the clinging to life. And then klesha, which we already know, it's the root cause of pain or the root cause of our afflictions. Okay, so let's read it all together. So sometimes these words, they're not really easily translated, so sometimes it's better to kind of get used to the Sanskrit words. So for example here, so avidyā-asmitā-rāga-dvesha-abhiniveshāh are the kleshas. Okay, so it's ignorance, ego, attachment, aversion, clinging to life are the root causes of our pain. So, klesha. So, like I said, they're the root cause of our suffering. So they're very different. In the first chapter, we had talked about the mental distractions, the obstacles to mental clarity, the chitta vikshepas, in Sutra 130, if you want to review that. Those, sometimes we have them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're doubtful, sometimes we have some illness, sometimes we feel lazy. Whereas the kleshas, they're really at the root of everything. And us, we're always dealing with them. The person who wouldn't be dealing with them is the person that is an awakened person. Okay? So for us, they're always there. They're at the very root of all our suffering. So everybody is under the control. However, under their control, under the control of the kleshas. We're all under the control of the kleshas. However, with step-by-step learning and insight and knowledge and practice, we can start to reduce their hold upon us. Okay? Let's see. Yeah, so they're very difficult to overcome. So let's talk about avidya. So avidya, it means ignorance. Okay, so when Patanjali talks about ignorance, however, he's not talking about the ignorance of not knowing how to do something or not knowing, what current events are, or, a different language. It's not this kind of ignorance, not knowing where that country is, all our worldly kind of ignorance. He's not talking about that. He's really talking about the misapprehension about the real nature of things. We don't understand things as they really are. We see the world through our senses. We experience the world through our senses. We have our mind, like our sixth sense, that tries to understand the world through those senses. And this is only a part of the truth. Okay? When he's talking about truth, he's talking about the real self, the ultimate reality, the true self, things like this, divine. So he's referring to the self with a capital S. Us, we believe, when we look around, we believe all this is real, right? I can see it, I can touch it, I can smell it, I can hold it, I can move it. This is what we think is real. What we can actually, I'm not going to believe it unless I see it, right? We hear things like that. And even when you start to think about that, you think about, well, we don't see other planets necessarily. We see pictures of other planets, but we don't see them for ourselves. We don't see the atoms or the molecules. We don't see all these little parts, but we know that they are there. As we've developed the technology and the understanding, we're able to see more than what we can actually see with our own senses. Or you think about a dog who can hear or smell things that we can't hear or smell. Doesn't mean they're not there. Right? So even if you just think about it on a practical level, there is some common sense to this, that we see everything, we think that that is the way it is because my senses tell me so, right? But actually our ignorance it's also sometimes called spiritual ignorance, is what Patanjali is talking about. So because I believe reality is what I can see, touch, hear, things like this, they get entangled with the ego, the asmitā. I get entangled with that because I can touch my body, I can feel my body, I can hear, I think I am my body, right? Does that make sense? And then the body, the ego, who I think I am, it tends to like some things and dislike other things, right? So I'm going to go after the things I like, and I want to stay away from the things I don't like. And so ultimately, all makes sense as an organism. So the organism of the body, it needs things that it likes. It needs nourishment, it needs water, it needs food, it needs sun, right? It needs sleep. It's going to need those things as an organism to be able to stay alive. And it's going to want to stay away from things that could be causing it danger, right? So a virus, for example, it wants to shoot that away. Our system wants to get rid of anything that isn't going to be good for it. It wants to eliminate, when we eat, it's going to eliminate. It's going to want to stay away from a fire or too cold or too hot. It's going to want to stay away from all these things so that it can stay alive. And the last klesha is abhiniveshāh, which is the fear of death or the clinging to life. And so on this very basic level as an organism, this all makes sense, right? But the problem is that we get it all mixed up. right? We get mixed up with the psyche, with the mind, and then we see things that we want. We don't like that because, oh, I don't know, it's the wrong color or the wrong smell or something like this. And so it gets all mixed up. And so then this is where we get that whole procedure brings us into more trouble, right? Because if we only stayed very basic, then we might not get into as much trouble with this. So let's see, what did I write there? It makes perfect sense as an organic organism. The issue is it gets expanded beyond the simplicity of eating, drinking, going away from danger, and gets all confusing in the psyche, right? So the next sutra, he's going to go on and he's going to explain all of the other terms in detail, so I won't explain them in much detail here. So Sutra 2.4. Okay, so this is giving a little more depth into what these are. Avidya, ignorance. Kshetram is field. Uttareshām is of the others. Prasupta, dormant. Tanu, weakened. Vicchinna, interrupted. Udārānām is aroused. So ignorance is the field of the other kleshas. Okay, so all the other kleshas, the asmitā, the dvesha, the raga, the abhiniveshāh, they all have ignorance within them. Okay, so it's like the seed that sprouts a tree. So avidya is the seed, and then all those kleshas come out and sprout like a tree. So ignorance is the field of the others, which may be dormant, weakened, interrupted, or aroused. So those kleshas, they could be dormant, prasupta. So they're going to be dormant only in that being that is has achieved like jivan mukti, like an awakened being. They're in their last living body. So in seed form, as they are in a seed form as a potential, but they've been burned. Okay, so a seed that is burned will not sprout again, right? It can't sprout again. So it's the yogi who is in their last bodily frame, as Vyasa said. Okay, so it's their last bodily frame. So I don't know, that's not me. I think I've got several more lives to go through and dig through all this. So I don't know, that's, I would say, like a really high level guru or a sage or somebody with a lot of wisdom. The next one, tanu, means they're weakened. So the kleshas are weakened. They're overpowered by the contemplation of their opposites. So again, this is a little bit of a higher person in the, in the spiritual world, in their yoga practices. They've managed to weaken the ties of their kleshas. Vicchinna, so interrupted, they come and go. They're suppressed by other kleshas, for example, or maybe we're managing. I would say that most of us who are trying, like we're on a path and we're really making some efforts to, grow ourselves and change ourselves and understand this, I would say we're probably in that realm where sometimes they're interrupted because you're sitting and you're in meditation and you're contemplating and you're trying to weaken them. We're on that path, okay? And then the last one, udārānām, this is aroused. So what Vyasa said is that they're basically just everybody, the average person, where every minute the mind is affected by the kleshas. There's no attempt to take this time to calm the mind, know who you really are, understand the nature of the truth. There's none of that happening. It's just going through the life and, you know, running after the things you want, getting away from the things you don't want, you know, having this sense of deep fear of dying, which won't necessarily feel like you have fear of death, but this deep innate fear that we have and that's always present, that might be showing itself up in, you know, extreme anxiety or worry or, you know, things like this. Okay, so there's no attempt to interrupt that and get to shed some light on it. Okay, the next sutra, Sutra 2.5. So here's where Patanjali starts to explain each of those kleshas, each word, one by one. So, anitya means impermanent. Ashuci is impure. Dukkha means painful or sorrowful. Anātmasu is non-self, self with a capital S. Nitya means permanent or everlasting. Suci is pure. Sukha is joyous or happiness, at ease. Atma is self. Khyātir is seeing or identification with. And then avidya, ignorance. So he's explaining a little more detail what ignorance is. So ignorance is seeing the permanent, pure, joyous, and self in the impermanent, impure, painful, and non-self. Okay, so we're seeing that this is I might look at my body and think somehow, and it's not a conscious thinking, right? Because then it's not logical. It's not consciously thinking that, you know, my body is going to live forever. But somehow we walk around as if, you know, there's that sense that this is really who I am, right? That body, because we identify it with it so much, with that mind as well. So there is avidya in all the other kleshas, I already said that. Asmita, we identify with this body, mind, ego. Okay, so that's the avidya, the ignorance within asmita. In raga, we think if we can get what we want, we'll be happy. Right? If only, like, if I finally get that job I've been really wanting, then I will be happy. If I get that car I really want, then I'll be happy. If I finally complete, you know, second series, then I will be happy, right? And so we're always doing those kinds of things. I think all of us, you know, it's always, our happiness is going to come, right? We're working in the process of our happiness rather than just being happy, right? In the moment. So, or another way raga is ignorant is when we have something, we think it will always be ours, right? So, you know, you have that house and you think that is your house, right? My house, that is my money, that is my husband, that is, you know, we think that this all belongs to us. And we know the reality of it is that that isn't always the case. First, you know, like, you don't never know really ultimately what will happen with a relationship. And you can't own somebody, even with children. I asked Tiwari about that because, you know, when I was a young mother, that was really disturbing to hear this kind of thing, right? And even your child, you have to understand that your child is not yours, right? So if we have that attachment, too much of that attachment, then it can cause us some pain, right? Because we identify ourselves in that child, in that husband, in that wife, in that house, in that car, in that amount of money, in that yoga studio, you know, whatever it may be. Dvesha, we think if we can avoid the things we don't like, we will be happy, right? If I can, you know, make sure I only go out when it's sunny out, this is going to make me happy, right? If I don't know, like I avoid taking care of, you know, I have a friend that I wasn't very, you know, something happened with that friendship, and if I just avoid it, okay, that's going to make me happy. I just never see that friend again, and this is going to, you know, this is going to be okay. It's going to make me happy, which we all know if we did something bad or wrong or had this dispute, it stays, right? It stays in the body. And then abhiniveshāh is the ignorance in thinking the body is what makes us alive, right? That yeah, that's, I guess that's the best way. Like, it's that clinging to that life, right? I want to hold on to this body. I don't want anything to ever happen to this body, because when that happens, then I no longer exist, right? So this is like the ultimate. So what did I have just a little bit more time. So I think that, you know, this avidya, I think it's something that we should really contemplate on this ignorance, of this spiritual ignorance, and not realizing that who we really are. And if we go really deep inside, like if you think about the body, sometimes you can take a picture out of yourself when you were 3 years old and you see that body, right? That person there, and they might not look, you might not look recognizable, right? If you see a picture of me when I was 2 years old, you know, you might try hard and say, oh yeah, you got the same cheeks, or, you know, but really I don't look anything the same, right? And then you go and you get a picture of when you're 10 years old and you remember what you were like when you were 10 years old, 16, and it's always changing. So if I get too attached to that body, that thing that is impermanent, then it's going to cause me unhappiness. So what he's saying is that we believe the impermanent, ignorance is the field of the others. Oh wait, no, where's my impermanence one? I'm reading the wrong one. Just to reread that up. Folded it, here it is. Ignorance is seeing the permanent, the pure, the joyous, and the self in the impermanent. Okay, so my body is not permanent. When they talk about pure, it's pure in the sense because the only thing that is really pure is what lives forever. What is always there, will always be there. So it's not pure in the sense of like our lower way of looking at it, right? Like pure and dirty, right? Clean and dirty. It's not this kind of pure. It's in the pure that there's something, the wisdom behind this intelligence is what is pure. And in the painful, and the reason why he says in the painful is because there will always be suffering. This is like one of the first noble truths, right, in Buddhism. You know, there will always be suffering. And if we try to really run away from that, you know, we have to understand that it won't always be up, right? There's going to be ups and downs, ups and downs. I think what we try to avoid, though, is skyrockets and deep holes, right? When we go too high, then we go too low, or vice versa. So we have to recognize there's ups and downs, and we have to, our contemplation on the ignorance will help us understand this. Sometimes things are a little better than others, but I'm not going to let that get me down, because if I go inside, the true self, the real self, it's unaffected by all of that. Totally unaffected. It's unaffected by the ups and downs of our daily life. The things that bug us, the things we like, the fear of death. Well, it never dies. There's an essence within us that will never die. And so when we can get some connection in with this, then it tends to bring some peace. Right? I'm not saying that, when your husband leaves you, that you're not gonna break down and you're not gonna feel pain and sorrow. But if you have that inside, that you have that true essence that you can turn to, then it'll give you the knowledge that it will always turn out well. Somehow. It might not turn out the way you expect it to, the way you want it to, but eventually it will turn out well, right? We think about the pandemic right now, and it's very difficult. It's difficult for many people's lives. It's difficult for the people that are getting sick, the people that have loved ones who get sick. It's difficult for the economy, the politics, you name it. It's difficult. But we know it's not going to be permanent. And when we can go inside and feel that there is this place that is impermanent, then it can help us come out and deal with that, right? All of that. To have a little bit of space there so that you understand that you don't get overwhelmed as much, right? Does that make sense? So the meditation that I thought to do tonight, it's a meditation that I've learned through Tara Brach. So she teaches Buddhism, but I think that with this, it makes a lot of sense to me. It's a meditation on what am I believing? So for example, when we start to feel overwhelmed, the example I can give is with the yoga studio in the spring when we were told we had to close the yoga studio. Okay, 1 month, this was fine, whatever, I can handle that and everything. Then the second month came, and then the third month. And as it was going on, I started getting really, really nervous, really worried. And it brought me back into childhood memories when my parents, they went bankrupt when I was, I guess, about 12 or 13, and we lost, everything. And my parents, they were teenage parents already, so they always struggled financially because my mom was 17 when she got pregnant. By the time I was born, she had just turned 18 years old, and my dad was 19, and so they had they didn't have a home. So when I was a baby, they were living at friends' houses, and apparently I was sleeping in drawers and on the floor and all this. And then they split up for some time, and then they went back together, and they kind of managed to get things together a little bit for a couple of years. And then there was a big recession in Canada, and in North America, actually. I don't know if it was over here in Europe. And then they both lost their jobs. And, neither of them are educated. My dad went to school till he was 9 years old. My mother went till she was 15. And so they had no other things that they could do. And so then they just lost everything. So when this pandemic thing started happening, this brought all that back to me. You know, like when, you know, our life was just over. Then they got divorced, and, you know, and then I lived with my aunt and uncle. You know, at 16, I moved in with an aunt and everything. So it just like how we had a couple of years where the family actually got something together, and then it was gone. And I didn't talk to my dad from 16 till 28, right? So all those memories that were all in seed form, that all those years I've been like really like working hard to never have this happen, right? To never have to be in that position again. You know, like we lived in a campsite, and, you know, like it was a bit of a nightmare. And so, like I said, at the beginning it was okay, but then as I saw it continuing, I started getting like panic attacks and really feeling like my whole livelihood and my children were going to be affected, my marriage, you know, everything was going to be affected by this. And so it really took some, you know, work to go inside and ask myself, what am I believing here? What am I believing? What am I believing? And to learn to see that the thread going back was all to that, actually, because I didn't understand that right away. I understand this now. I could just see that I was flipping out, you know, and I didn't really understand why I was taking it in such a, you know, extreme way. And then as I worked it, I understood that this was going all the way back to that. And then this feeling of, I'm just gonna die, you know, like not maybe literally die, but, you know, abhiniveshāh doesn't necessarily mean literally dying. You know, it doesn't have to mean that. When it goes into the psyche, then it's having this feeling like you're going to, like you're just gonna lose everything and everything's gonna be over. You're gonna lose your kids and blah, 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 all this. So this really helped me over those last several months. As soon as I feel the anxiety coming up, is what am I believing here? What am I believing here? What am I believing? And, you know, feeling from inside, where am I? Because something small might happen. You know, like you think about a small argument you might have with a friend that takes you into this place that you're just like, you know, at the moment, you know, it seems like it's so passionate, and then you step away and you're like, what was that? You know, why did I react in this very like harsh or extreme way? And so coming back to what am I believing can really help. It can help in, I think, every single situation pretty much. And it'll bring some light into the situation. And then, you know, because the other meditation that I like to do is based on what I was saying with seeing you as a baby, as a 2-year-old, as a 6-year-old, as a 10-year-old, and going through and noticing that everything has changed. The body has changed, my thoughts have changed, my environment has changed, everything has changed, but there is this thread of essence that is always there. And you can even take that meditation into what was there before I was born, right? Before I was conceived, and what will be there after that body dies, you know, and then you feel that essence. And when you can get into that essence, then you understand it's going to be okay. You know, it's always going to be okay. Doesn't mean that I'm going to get what I want. It doesn't mean that sometimes you're going to be in difficult situations, but it will ultimately be okay, right? And I look at myself during those years, all that stuff that happened, I'm okay, you know, like I'm alive, I manage well, I know how to create and work, and, you know, I'm fine. Okay, so even the harshest times in our lives can turn out to be something of a blessing on some level, right? Because all those hard times make you who you are. And perhaps if I didn't have that happen to me, I would be a different person than I am now. right? There's the essence that would be the same, but it would have manifested itself in a different manner. So what am I believing? Okay, so just come and close your eyes for a moment. Try to guide you through. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to come up with something that has been causing you some light anxiety. Don't go to your most difficult experience in your life. Something that's maybe, just giving you some anxiety or worry or a little bit of stress. So first, though, let's bring ourselves inwards. Noticing the vibration, the inner vibration. And I think it's important to try to calm that, so that the body feels somewhat calm, so it doesn't distract us from going deeper. Can use the breath to help settle the mind. And then think of something that's been maybe disturbing you, or a situation that's uncomfortable to deal with, situation you may be avoiding or you overreact to. Anything that might be present with you in those last days or weeks. And try to follow the thread back. To see what you're believing about that situation. If it brings up any painful memories, and offer yourself love and kindness. brings up any irritation or worry, you can also allow yourself to feel that. Try not to judge yourself. It's okay if you feel irritated, worried, angry. You can embrace that. If you don't get any great insights, don't understand your situation, this is okay too. You can still give yourself credit for making attempts. You can bring the hands in front of the chest. You can chant Om Shanti, bringing ourselves peace. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Namaste.